First at 9, this Wednesday, the 2nd of October 2024. Cross-border support. Australian and British diplomats express willingness to bring in FDIs, while regional neighbours express commitment to Sri Lanka's recovery and integrity. Checks and balances. Former Speaker of Parliament urges the necessity of empowering the 21st Amendment. Proposes to create executive that is answerable to Parliament. Alliance and severance. Former SLPP ministers join Maubima Janata Party. UNP and SJP discussions to form an alliance fail amid unfulfilled demands. Follow through. Former Finance State Minister urges the new government to continue IMF program amid the steady appreciation of the rupee.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
වැඩිම මනාපෙන් ජනතා තේරීම මෙවරත්
සුදේශී ඔරිජිනල් කුහුඹම තමයි.
This is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Sri Lanka's premier primetime English news bulletin, Derana First at 9. I'm Tarindu Mahendra, joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and from around the world. Now in your top story making headlines tonight, ambassadors and high commissioners representing 7 countries paid courtesy calls on President Anurukumara Dissanayake today at the Presidential Secretariat. During the meetings, diplomats from Australia and Great Britain expressed their nation's interest in promoting foreign direct investment in Sri Lanka. Meanwhile, representatives from India and Japan and Canada pledged to support Sri Lanka in its economic recovery, while also emphasizing the importance of implementing policies to minimize corruption in the country. The Indian High Commissioner Santosh Jha met with President Anurukumara Dissanayake today. Extending his wishes to the President, the Indian High Commissioner affirmed India's support for the development of the country. He also highlighted the need for technological advancements in the state sector to combat corruption and proposed to provide expert support for digitalization while commending the President's anti-corruption policies. Meanwhile, the Japanese ambassador Mizukoshi Hideaki called on President Dissanayake today and vowed to support the President's vision of creating a nation free of corruption. During the meeting, the Japanese ambassador also promised to provide opportunities for Japanese language learning and employment in Japan. The Chinese ambassador Chi Zhenhong also met with President Dissanayake today and expressed China's commitment to the future progress of Sri Lanka. During the meeting, the Chinese ambassador emphasized the importance of joint projects currently underway in Sri Lanka and the support extended by the Chinese Development Bank and the Exim Bank. He also assured China's cooperation in restructuring the country's external debt. The High Commissioner of Australia to Sri Lanka, Paul Stevens, reassured Australia's support in key areas including maritime safety, border control and counter-terrorism efforts. During his meeting today with President Anurukumara Dissanayake, he emphasized Australia's commitment to supporting Sri Lanka's IMF program and expressed interest in promoting foreign direct investment in the country. He also highlighted the importance of maintaining economic transparency as a crucial element in fostering investor confidence. During a courtesy call on President Dissanayake, the British High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, Andrew Patrick, expressed the British government's strong support for Sri Lanka's efforts to attract foreign direct investment. He also conveyed the UK's support for the IMF program and the debt restructuring process. During the meeting, the British High Commissioner also extended personal well wishes from King Charles III and Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer. The Canadian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, Eric Walsh, also made a courtesy call on President Dissanayake today. During the meeting, the Canadian High Commissioner highlighted the importance of combating corruption and maintaining stability to attract foreign investments. He also promised to extend his support for the ongoing IMF program. The Cuban ambassador to Sri Lanka, Andres Marcelo Gonzalez Garrido, also met with President Dissanayake today at the Presidential Secretariat. The meeting focused on strengthening the diplomatic relations between the two countries. Additionally, the Cuban ambassador reaffirmed his country's continuous support for Sri Lanka's efforts to combat dengue and expressed its willingness to share expertise and collaborate on public health initiatives. Meanwhile, the president of the Asian Development Bank, Masatsugu Asakawa, reaffirmed the ADB's commitment to deepening its cooperation with Sri Lanka as the nation undertakes significant reforms to overcome the economic crisis. In his message to the newly elected president, Asakawa extended his best wishes to President Dissanayake and emphasized the vital role of the president's leadership in stabilizing the economy and steering it towards a more inclusive, sustainable and resilient future.
Horizon Campus 2024 Intake 2. Register now.
චන්දරුසුමේ කාගෙන් වන අපේ සිංහ TV සඳහා සුපිරි ඩීල්.
Welcome to Cinnamon Life, South Asia's biggest entertainment hub, where awe awaits.
Former Speaker of Parliament Karu Jayasuriya proposes to create an executive that is answerable to Parliament in order to change the culture of dictatorial powers being centred around a single person, posing a threat to democracy. Speaking at the inauguration ceremony of the Institute of Democracy and Governance, the former Speaker also stressed the need to empower the 21st Amendment to the Constitution in order to re-establish a moral society. Meanwhile, addressing the gathering, a veteran civil servant, Austin Fernando, asserted that Sri Lanka requires a national policy-making mechanism. The inauguration ceremony of the Institute of Democracy and Governance, an initiative by former Speaker of Parliament Karu Jayasuriya, was held recently in Colombo. Affiliated with the Institute of Politics, the IDAG aims to reshape Sri Lanka by fostering stronger democratic values, enhancing transparency and encouraging active citizen participation in governance.
Without a transparent, accountable and inclusive governance structure, no nation can truly prosper in the long term. The collapse we witnessed in 2022, driven more mounting debt, focal mismanagement and lack of foresight as a wake-up call for all of us. We face one of the worst crises in the modern history. It was a stark reminder of the consequence when the governance flattered and economic management is misaligned with the needs of the people. The crisis exposed gaps in leadership, policy inconsistencies and structural weaknesses in the government that built up over years. However, this crisis also presents a unique opportunity, a chance to rebuild Sri Lanka on strong foundation. The most of the people, they argue that currently what we have to address is the economic issue, and they believe that the politics, of course not that important, but we have to understand the good governance is the main pillar for a success of a country. So what we experience today, all this bankruptcy and the corruption and everything, that is mainly because of poor good governance. So therefore I believe that it is the central point of any success. No one is talking about the political literacy and the financial literacy. 43% are not familiar with the financial system. Therefore, any politician, any leader can mislead the people on the stage, giving many promises and giving expectations for the voters by which they can easily gain their voting and finally come into any institution, maybe including parliament. We need leaders who understand the complexity of governance in globalized world, who can work collaboratively with international partners and who have the ability to inspire public trust through their authorities. As we move forward, Sri Lanka must leverage its position not only as a country with proud democratic tradition, but also as a nation that has learned from its challenge. Sri Lanka's future is bright if we commit to the difficult but necessary path of governance reform. If we invest leadership that prioritize the long-term well-being of the country, and if we create policies that ensure not just growth, but equitable and sustainable development of Sri Lanka.
Since Aragalia was a creation of useful equivalent during a pathetically devastating economy, we need to fruitfully leverage this demographic divide in the coming decades. This potential must be realized through education, skills development, elimination of gender bias, and the creation of productive employment opportunities. Indian Community Welfare Fund, especially focusing on the Gulf workforce, negotiate agreements making access easier for Indians in Japan, Europe, the Gulf, and Russia. There were minor intervention, increasing 4 times the passport issues centers and relaxing verifications, supplementing the major project of bringing human capital to play, shows operational diversification. Incidentally, this is while we have failed to maintain the required stock of passports and arithmetical job. What Indians have done is to direct national policies and actions while withdrawing from ongoing inactions. It demands the formulation of national policies for which IDAG can assist. We require a national policy-making mechanism. From the idea of centralized policy-making, the Cabinet of Ministers evolved as the authority for national policy-making. It is constitutional. The Cabinet is charged with the direction and control of the government and collectively responsible and answerable to the Parliament. However, in practice, national policies have been introduced to gladden political egos and bureaucrats based on fewer stakeholder consultations, sometimes on the dictates of multilateral financing agents or even donors. The deepened crisis caused by some policies ended with the topmost political heads ruling. IDAG has space to assist government agencies with policymaking advocacy, for which their capacity building is almost a must.
We observed that dictatorial powers were centered around a single person and democracy suffered as a result. That is why we propose to create a rule that is answerable to Parliament. We have continuously raised concerns about the executive presidency and we have communicated those concerns to the current administration as well. The 20th Amendment to the Constitution grants the President a wide range of dictatorial powers. Following the abolishment of the 19th Amendment, we worked with various civil organizations to empower the 21st Amendment in order to re-establish a moral society. Another of our mission is creating ethnic and religious harmony between the North and the South. This should not be delayed any further. We have expended a vast amount of energy to achieve ethnic harmony. These are our goals for the future. It is the future generations of this country who will benefit from these efforts, not us.
Now, the Samagi Jana Balawega claimed that the party decided to conclude discussions with the United National Party on forming an alliance due to the UNP's failure to fulfill the conditions stipulated by the SJB. Meanwhile, former parliamentarian Saman Ratnapre stated that the group of politicians who supported former President Ranil Wickremesinghe during the recent presidential election has inquired the Election Commission on whether they are able to use the former president's symbol gas cylinder for the alliance in the upcoming general election. According to the latest reports, all political parties who supported former President Wickremesinghe will contest under the New Democratic Front under the symbol gas cylinder. The group of politicians who supported former President Ranil Wickremesinghe during the recent presidential election convened at the Election Operations Office on Flower Road, Colombo this afternoon to reach a final decision on the alliance which they plan to form to contest the upcoming general election and its symbol. According to sources, the group is planning to reach a final agreement on whether to inquire from the Election Commission if they are able to contest under the symbol gas cylinder, which was previously used by former President Ranil Wickremesinghe during his presidential election campaign. However, it is also reported that if they are unable to contest under the symbol gas cylinder, the group is planning to contest under the symbol elephant or any other symbol that is available.
We are planning to contest as an alliance. The symbol for the alliance is already at the Election Commission. We will be informed after the discussions and we will decide on the symbol according to the end results of the discussions. The majority of the UNP hopes to contest under the elephant symbol. The SLFP would prefer to contest under another symbol, but they will agree to contest if there is a common symbol.
In the meantime, a media briefing was held by representatives of Samagi Jana Balawega, during which they alleged that the United National Party has failed to fulfill the conditions which the SJB stipulated for the formation of an alliance.
Sajid Premadasa is planning to contest as a candidate for premiership, and all of the parties that joined our alliance during the presidential election is here with us today. We are requesting the public to give their support for Samagi Jana Balawega for the country's democracy and to provide an opportunity for the people who want to develop this country.
Samagi Jana Sandhanයට අවශ්‍ය බලය සහයෝගය දෙන කියන එක තමයි අපි ඉල්ලා සිටින්නේ.
One of our conditions was that former President Ranil Wickremesinghe must resign from party leadership before we formed an alliance. However, they had also formed an alliance with Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna. Since they were hoping to continue their alliance, we were of the view that there would be no space for us in that alliance. We are not ready to form an alliance with every single party. We have certain criteria and we do not expect to form an alliance with some parties. Because of those reasons, we concluded our discussions. Meanwhile, former Minister Roshan Ranasinghe and former State Minister Professor Channa Jayasumana joined the Maubima Janata Party today, following which they were appointed to the positions of the party's chairman and vice chairman respectively. Addressing the media following his appointment, the MJP's new vice chairman, Professor Channa Jayasumana, asserted that the Maubima Janata Party is the political movement most capable of performing the duties of the opposition in the next parliament. Former Sports Minister Roshan Ranasinghe joined the Maubima Janata Party today, following which he was appointed the party's chairman. Former State Minister Professor Channa Jayasumana, who entered Parliament from Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, also joined the MJP, following which he was appointed the party's vice chairman. Former Gampaha District Parliamentarian of Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Milan Jayatilaka, also joined the Maubima Janata Party and was awarded the position of Gampaha District Leader. The position of the Maubima Janata Party's Katana electorate organiser was awarded to former Western Provincial Council member Rajitha Hapuarachchi.
We mark another important milestone in this program of re-empowering the leftist nationalist political movement which Sri Lanka lost. We were able to recruit many individuals who oppose this country's corrupt politics and are true to their conscience. Among them are my entrepreneurial colleague Roshan Ranasinghe and my close friend Professor Channa Jayasumana. Professor Channa Jayasumana is an example for all patriotic Sri Lankans.
You may remember me saying that this country should be led by someone who has supported their family through their own efforts and someone who supports many other families through entrepreneurship. I have great admiration for Dilith Jayavira. His concept of an entrepreneurial state and my vision for a manufacturing economy based on endemism are very compatible. When I talked to my friends in Sri Lanka, what they said was that they voted for Anurukumara due to the shortcomings of the system that prevailed. However, every person whom I talked with was of the view that if Anurukumara fails, the only remaining solution for the country is Dilith Jayavira and the MJP.
We will not unfairly criticize the National People's Power. That political movement has been requesting power for close to 6 decades and today the people have granted it to them. They must be given sufficient time to deliver on their promises. However, due to inconsistencies within that political movement, the question arises as to how long they can continue. If for some reason they fail sooner than expected, we cannot allow the country to fall into a state of anarchy. The parties who portray themselves as the opposition have repeatedly proven that they are incapable of securing power or leading the country on the correct path. Therefore, a strong political movement must emerge within the country, and that is none other than the Maubima Janata Party. Meanwhile, spokesperson of the Lanka Tamil Arasukachi, former parliamentarian M.A. Sumandiran, revealed that the party will contest the upcoming general election individually without aligning with any mainstream political party. Addressing the media, Sumandiran added that a committee is also in place to oversee the nominations of the party for all districts in the north and east.
ලංකාවේ තමරස කච්චි මධ්‍ය කාරක සභාව ගිය සතියේ අපි රැස්වීමේදී අපි නාම යෝජනා තීරණය කරන්නට කමිටුවක් පත් කරලා තියෙන්නේ. උතුර නැගෙනහිර පළාතේ හැම දිස්ත්‍රික්ට් එකේම අපේ අපේක්ෂකයන් කවුද කියලා තීරණය කරන්න යනවා.
ද්‍රවිඩ සංධානයේ විදියට තරම් කරන්නේ එහෙම නැත්නම් සංධානයක් විදියට එකතු වෙලා තරම් කරන්නේ.
ලංකාවේ තමරස කච්චි තනිම අපේ නමින් අපේ ලාජනයේ යටතේ තමයි තරඟ කරන්න කියලා අපි තීරණය අරන් තියෙනවා. අපි ආරාධනා කරන තියෙන්නේ අනිත් අයට ඕනේ නම් අපිත් එක්ක එකතු වෙලා තරඟ කරන්න ඉදිරිපත් වෙන්න කියලා.
Fast track your career from O levels with eSoft. Crunchy goodness for hunger on the go.
Now, several of the vehicles that were parked in front of the Presidential Secretariat after being brought there by the government institutions have been returned to their respective agencies. The President's office stated that 19 vehicles were released and around 15 were collected yesterday by officers of the relevant agencies. These include 8 vehicles from the Road Development Authority, 3 from the Ministry of Finance and a vehicle each from the Southern Provincial Council, the Ministry of Transport and Civil Aviation and the Department of Wildlife Conservation. Now, Sealead Shipping, a global shipping line, officially inaugurated its direct liner service in collaboration with the Sri Lanka Ports Authority today. The Ports Authority stated that this development enhances maritime connectivity between the Far East, India and East Africa through the launch of the Far East India-Djibouti service. The Far East India-Djibouti service, which commenced operations on the 5th of September this year, provides weekly liner services connecting vital ports in China, India and Djibouti. The westbound route begins in Shanghai and includes key stops at Ningbo, Nansha, Port Klang, Colombo, Nhava Sheva and Mundra, culminating in Djibouti. This service is expected to reduce transit times and boost trade efficiency across major global trade routes, with Colombo included as a key hub port. Prabhat Malavige, Managing Director of the Sri Lanka Ports Authority, stated that this partnership aligns with Sri Lanka's goal to strengthen Colombo's status as a premier maritime hub in the region. Now, the Colombo Bourse closed in red today due to price losses in John Keel's Holdings, LOLC Holdings and National Development Bank, with the turnover crossing 2.2 billion rupees. The all-share price index settled 0.49% lower at 11,934.23 points. Trading volume on the index fell to 73.2 million shares from 133.9 million in the previous session. The S&P SL20 also closed 0.31% lower at 3,510.03 points. The banking sector was the top contributor to the market turnover, while the capital goods sector came in second. Foreign investors were net sellers, offloading stocks worth 12.3 million rupees, while domestic investors were net buyers, purchasing shares worth 2.24 billion rupees. Welcome back. Here's Minal Vikramge from Capital Alliance with some thoughts on the current status of the economy in our next segment, Economic Outlook.
The CCPI recorded an year-on-year inflation rate of -0.5% for September 2024. The central bank decided to maintain its SDFR at 8.25% and its LFR at 9.25%. M2B expanded by 9.3% year-on-year in August 2024. Net credit to the government from the banking sector saw a reduction of 93.7 billion LKR in the same month, while outstanding credit to the public corporations decreased by 20.5 billion LKR. Private sector credit saw significant growth, increasing by 135.2 billion, representing a year-on-year growth of 8.7%. Market liquidity shifted back into a surplus of 27.4 billion LKR recorded by September 27. Revenue and grants for the 7 months ending in July 2024 increased 2,161.8 billion LKR. Total expenditure and net lending also rose slightly to 3,034 billion. Net domestic financing decreased to 789.3 billion from January to July 2024. Net foreign financing increased to 83 billion LKR during the first 7 months of 2024.
Now, the selling rate of the US dollar dropped below the 300 rupee mark for the first time since June last year. The USD selling rate was recorded at 299 rupees and 35 cents today, while the buying rate of the US dollar stood at 290 rupees and 30 cents. And with that, here's a look at the rupee exchange rate against other currencies. Former State Minister of Finance Shehan Singha urged the new government to stick with the International Monetary Fund's program amidst the steady depreciation of the rupee against the dollar. In a message on the X platform, the former minister urged the new administration to remain committed to the IMF program, which has been instrumental in stabilizing Sri Lanka's economy. He further said that any disruptive decisions could jeopardize the hard-earned progress that is vital for the betterment of the nation. And that's all the news for today. Thank you for joining and have a good night.